Hello guys and welcome to Odds on Euro. We are gonna talk about England-Germany, probably the most interesting last 16 fixture with Tom Rennie and with you, of course. So leave a comment below in the comment section and you will have the chance to win a £10 free bet with Novibet. And of course, do not forget to click on the like button, subscribe to our channel and click on the bell to get all the notifications. And now let's go on with the show. So let's analyze the most interesting last 16 game. In my opinion, we have England-Germany. How are you, Tom?
Yes, I'm just looking forward to it coming home. I've worn this England shirt specifically for this preview. So confident am I that it's coming home.
Are you, actually? Yeah.
No, of course not. No, you'll find out in my predictions in moments from now. But I wanted to give the facade of confidence at the start. That's drawn people in. People are going to stay with us now for this video because they know, oh, he's a big patriot. He's a big England fan. They're definitely going to win. And the longer they stay, they'll realise we're going home.
Yeah, because I remember you've been kind of critic with your national team, but there are many stats, positive stats for England, also positive for Germany. So we can pick both sides. Let's start, let's say, with the positive things for England. Last 5 games, they haven't conceded. They have not lost in the last 9 games. The last defeat was against Belgium in the Nations League. A team that actually, if someone is betting for both teams to score, we can go later for this market. This is something that England is not doing lately. Again, they have not conceded a single goal in this tournament. The bad side, of course, about England, only 2 goals. Kane is not in form, and there are doubts in the attacking line. Grealish shined a little bit, no, we can say, in the last game, at least when he played against Czech Republic. And Germany is a team that concedes a lot. The defense is very weak. Even Hungary was able to score 2 goals. So this is all the positive things we can say for England, staying positive for your national team. And also the odds. England is favorite. We have odds 2.65, Germany 3.06. So slightly favorite. Remember that they are playing in Wembley.
Very tight, very slight favourites. I wouldn't be calling England or Germany favourites. It's paper thin is the gap between these two teams, which it shouldn't be, considering that Germany are kind of transitioning from the Jogi Löw era. They've got a bunch of players who are 20 and a bunch of players who are 30, and no one is really at the peak of their powers at this tournament. England have a young team, but they have 3 or 4 players who I watch and I think, yeah, they are peaking right now. This is the best run of their career. Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, Harry Maguire, John Stones. There's a few there, and you think this should be a team that's closer to their absolute best than maybe Germany are, right? But that's a kind of very thin overview of these two teams. With England, I was fascinated this week to see the amount of press that was saying that whatever happens in this game, Gareth Southgate will get a new contract. Gareth Southgate will stay on as England manager. And look, I like Gareth Southgate as in his personality and his leadership credentials. I mean, he is the de facto leader of the opposition in this country. You know, he is the kind of socialist leader of this nation at this point, talking about the collective and talking about, you know, his letter in the Players' Tribune pre-tournament. You must have read it. It was lovely, wasn't it? It was everyone read it and thought, yeah, what a great guy. But then we watched the team, and the Croatia game was arduous, but they won. The Scotland game was an atrocious performance, but they didn't lose when they probably should have done. The Czech Republic game, upon reflection, watching the Czechs go through against the Dutch at the weekend, maybe that's a better performance now than maybe we thought it was, but I still don't think it was a particularly good performance. If England lose this game on Tuesday against Germany, this tournament has been Fabio Capello bad. Yeah, it's been Fabio Capello bad. It's been Algeria bad, right? That's how bad it has been. And yet people are talking about new contract. Performances on the field have been nowhere near good enough. And so this needs to be the first of a growing, developing step up into this tournament from England. If we don't get that, then I would expect Gareth Southgate to be considering his position, because this would have been a really poor tournament if they go out. Considering as well, as you mentioned, they're at home. It's non-stop home games. I saw something a couple of days ago which said England, of all the teams, obviously have travelled 0 miles for games, where others, like Wales, have travelled over 5,000. They played in Baku, they played in Amsterdam, they've been everywhere, and they couldn't get home fans into one of their games. So a lot of things favour England. The performances have been poor, in terms of entertainment at least. Some would say 7 points, no goals conceded, as you mentioned, pretty good. Central defence, it'll be Maguire and Stones. Fullbacks, anyone's guess. Every single fullback has played badly. All of them. Luke Shaw has offered nothing. Ben Chilwell, we don't know if he's going to be fit. Kyle Walker has been atrocious when he's played in this tournament. Shouldn't be anywhere near this team, but he comes in case they need pace. Reece James offered nothing going forward. Kieran Trippier's free kicks and corners in the first game were dreadful, which is kind of what he's there for. We've got 4 right backs going into the tournament. 3 went in the end. None of them any good. It's been a bit weird because you expect one of them to have been able to cut it at this point. Midfield, only Declan Rice, I think, is an assured starter. I would expect Henderson to come in for Phillips, but who knows how fit he has been. And I would expect Mason Mount to play, but who knows what's happened with him in terms of training on his own and if he's fit enough. But he's been England's best performer over the last 18 months or so I'd bring him in. And then the front 3, you mentioned it. Harry Kane, what's going on? What's happening with him? You mentioned it last week. It feels like we've got Tottenham's Harry Kane in terms of he's dropping deep, he's playing number 10, he's trying to play others in, as opposed to number 9 Harry Kane, which is what England need. England need Alan Shearer right now. They don't need Tottenham's everyman. And Raheem Sterling scored 2, but he's played pretty poorly. On the other side, the only person who's played well is Bukayo Saka, but I can't see him starting in this game despite his performance against the Czech Republic. I expect Phil Foden to come back in, but that gives you Sterling, Kane and Foden, which ain't worked. So a lot of headaches, a lot of questions, but Gareth Southgate needs to answer those questions because he's had 3 years to plan for this tournament. I expect him to have a solution to break down, as you mentioned, a pretty poor defensive Germany. If we're looking at odds for England, it's so razor thin. It's so razor thin to go for a win each way. I wouldn't bother with that. I expect this game to be quite tight. And you can get England to win on penalties for around 12 to 15 to 1 across the various markets this morning. That is interesting. Germany's around 11 to 13 to 1 as I looked this morning as well. If you go across the various bookies, that's pretty good as well. I expect tight. And history tells us these games do tend to go to penalties. Not just England, Germany, but last 16 games between pretty similar rivals. You know, the game between Belgium and Portugal was separated by one great goal. Apart from that, could have gone to penalties, couldn't it? Like, it was narrow. You're going to get narrow. So in terms of England to win on penalties, goalless all the way through. A win to 0 for England's around 4 to 5 to 1, which isn't too bad. Again, Germany's the same sort of odds. So one of these teams to win to 0 is better than one of these 2 teams to win. But I picked one out this morning that I quite like. England to win 1-0, Raheem Sterling to score, you can get as a double around about 30, 35 to 1. That'll fluctuate. That might come down, but Sterling will play. He's England's only goal scorer so far. And if England are going to win, I feel like they've got to not concede. If they do and start chasing it, the front players have not given me confidence so far to make me feel like they could do it.
You talked, Tom, of course, England has been quite dull, boring, especially for the normal football fan. On the other side, we have Germany. Germany came to the tournament with 0 expectations. Actually, the results weren't good. They conceded six goals against Spain. They lost to Macedonia. The results weren't good. You mentioned, no, they are in transition. Löw is leaving, Flick is arriving. But here we are in a big tournament, and we always have to count in considerations the Germans. And the thing is that they are really, really entertaining. I always take Radek that also for a normal fan, you see the German lineup, and it's really good, especially the midfield is great. Of course, the problem is in the defense. We knew it before the tournament, and we know now against France, they were really poor also offensively. They conceded 3 goals, although 2 were in offside. They conceded 2 goals against Portugal. They conceded 2 goals against Hungary. So the problem is there. It's not Neuer's problem, of course. It's the whole defense as an overall. But they have the quality, and something that I was not expecting, especially after the first game, especially after the whole season we've seen. Kai Havertz is scoring, and that's good news for Germany.
I mean, one of them was literally a header on the goal line. I know it, he still scored it. He still had to be there, but I would have scored that. And, I hate when people do that. Oh, I could have done that, but I genuinely would have scored it. That's how easy it was, right? Like, I'm not a good footballer, but I would have scored that. Anyone would have scored that, But, he's played okay. The thing is with Kai Havertz, people talk about his 2 goals and there's loads of shots in this tournament. Kai Havertz is unreliable. He is unreliable in a gambling market. He's unreliable in a football team market. Why? Because he can get distracted by a butterfly. He will be standing there in the field and see a pretty butterfly and he'll be like, oh, what's happening? And suddenly he's wandered out to the left wing and he's got the ball at his feet. Precociously, brilliantly talented, he has no role in a football team. And sometimes you'll get great performances, great goals, great moments. Other times you'll get, did he play? And it makes it very difficult for opposition teams to mark him and to follow him. But also, I'm sure it makes it very difficult for Germany to play with him. I'll tell you what's interesting about Germany for me is that there was so much controversy, however long ago it was, when Jogi Löw decided no more Thomas Müller, no more Mats Hummels. And then this tournament obviously is his last tournament and he can see that his team have got deficiencies and he's gone, let's bring those guys back in. And I think Thomas Müller coming back in has been a masterstroke. Thomas Müller is one of my favourite players of all time. He does everything. Yeah, I mean, any football fan, I think, loves this guy. Incredible personality, shows it on the field, and you listen to all the German players in their interviews, how much they love him being there, how much they love his infectious attitude, how much they love what he gives them off the field, crosses that white line, different guy, all business, shouting at everyone still, but it ain't funny this time. This is, I'll tell you what to do. And I think that's made Kai Havertz better. I think that's made Germany better. And he would be the key man here for Germany. If you're looking for goal scorer markets, that's where I would look. There's good markets right now on doubles of Sterling and Müller to score in this game. Now, I still think one of these teams is going to win 2-0 or it goes to penalties. That's my gut feeling on it. But there's some interesting markets there to look into. But Müller, good. Mats Hummels, bad. That was a poor decision. A poor decision. Now, I couldn't tell you the depth of German centre-halves in the Bundesliga. I know a few. I watched the league, but I couldn't tell you what was in Jogi Löw's thinking. I know they've got some injuries. They've got Rudiger, but they don't feel like he can play in a 2. I don't think he's great in a 2, but I do think Rudiger and Ginter need someone else to hold them together. The fact that it's Hummels, I think he looks weak in the tackle. I think he looks a bit slow. He looks poorly positioned. And some great recovery tackles have saved him in this tournament. But his all-round game, his positional play, the own goal he scored, everything has been nowhere near peak Hummels of 6-7 years ago. He's only 32. He looks 48. That's a big concern for Germany. You mentioned defensively, I agree completely. The 3 doesn't quite make sense. Gundogan and Kroos, great players in midfield. Does it work as a pair? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't quite get it. So I'd probably, if I were Germany, look to put Joshua Kimmich in the centre of midfield with someone else, maybe him and Gundogan, get someone else at right wing back. Otherwise, I don't see Gundogan and Kroos finding a way past if it was Henderson and Rice, for example. I think Kimmich could be the difference if they move him central, then who plays in the right wing back position if it's a 3-4-3? There's another question that Jogi Löw has to answer. And the front 3, there kind of is no front 3. It's a bunch of fritters, right? It could be Havertz, Sane, Gnabry. They put Kevin Volland on a couple of weeks ago, who, doesn't look like he has played international football for 5 years because he's not played international football for 5 years. So there's lots of issues there, lots of issues with Germany. But they're Germany, and they have Thomas Müller, and they love playing at Wembley. Last team to ever win there. Of course, won there in the famous European Championships of 1996. They love the new Wembley. They love the old Wembley. They love playing England in major tournaments. And a lot's been made of the rivalry, but there is no rivalry. There's no rivalry because England don't win it. You can't have a rival who you keep on beating. If you keep on beating them, they don't care about you. It's the same in domestic football. Everyone hates up the ladder. International football is the same. England want to be Germany. Germany want to be France. And it goes up in that way. The battles of European football have not been between these two nations. But this may be the first time since 2000, when they met in the European Championships, where England go into it, for me, as the better team with the better players. They were both useless in that tournament. England won that one game 1-0, got knocked out, as did Germany. But I think England go into it with better players at home as well. This is Germany's first away game. They played their 3 games in Munich. So just about England, I would say. I mentioned to you a few times, I think it will be tight. I think it'll be 1-0. I think it'll be under 1.5 goals to win this game. If there is to be a scoreline after 90, I'd be looking at 1-1 through to penalties. And then on penalties, which I think feel quite likely here, I think you get quite good odds either way if you do it pre-game.
We have under 2 goals. We can check actually the under market, that we always love it. The total market under 2 goals pays 2.43. So that could be a good bet. And in this case, then you think the English style will be the reigning one in this game, because Germany is more free flow. We are seeing they attack quite well, even if they don't have a top scorer like they used to have, like Klose or whatever. But the defense is so bad, so you expect a tight game, the same as we saw Belgium, Portugal, Italy, Austria, something like that. And also, Tom, I think we forgot to mention one key player for Germany that I like a lot in the Serie A, Gosens. He's been kind of the differential player for this national team that no one expected.
Yeah, you're right. I think he's been their best performer across the games. And he's another one that talked about the influence of Thomas Müller this week. Brilliant against Portugal, probably the player of the field that day. He's industrious, he's dangerous. He's got a wonderful first touch. His crossing is great. It'd be great if he had someone to cross to. But maybe this week that's what they've been working on. What's it been? 6-7 days since their last game. If they can find a way to get him to link up with Müller, link up with Havertz, link up with whoever plays in that front 3, I think you're absolutely right. It's a great shout. I think he could be a massive threat. Then again, it goes back to England. They picked every right back they could find. I'm sure there'll be a plan to close him down, because that's where the main outlet has been for Germany so far. But it's so tight, this one. It is so tight. It's one of those ones where my head tells me England, but my gut tells me Germany. And that's why tight game is what I'm going for.
My gut tells me Germany as well. And you mentioned how important is this rivalry in the history of football. They've met. England faced Germany for the 8th time in a major tournament, so World Cup or Euros. And the last time England eliminated the Germans in the knockout round, also you mentioned it, was the World Cup, in 1966, also in Wembley. And the last time they met in an international tournament was in 2010 in the World Cup, and that time Germany thrashed England 4-1. So for sure there are no good memories for the English when they have to face Germany. Most of the teams is the same. Germany, when it comes to big tournaments, they are always there, and we all know. But let's see what is happening in this Euro. England came as a favorite to these Euros, and so far they are picking more points than Germany, but it's true that Germany had very, very tough rivals. So let's go for under market, for a tight game, for a draw, maybe for penalties. All these are Tom's tips. Thanks, Tom, and good luck, of course.
Thank you.
Now you have all the info to bet in this very interesting England-Germany. Who are you backing? Let me know in the comment section, and you will have the chance to win a £10 free bet with Novibet. And of course, thumbs up if you enjoy our video, subscribe to our channel, and click on the bell to get all the notifications. And also, we have a podcast for you in case you want to listen to our videos in a podcast. See you very soon.